Hi, I'm Bill Wilt of Assured Research. Thanks so much for joining this quick hit video where we focus on one research note drawn, in this case, from our October 2025 Assured briefing. I'm recording this in mid-September, right after the reinsurance rendezvous at Monte Carlo. So there's lots of discussion in the insurance and reinsurance press about the upcoming January 2026 renewals. And we thought it'd be an appropriate time to take a step back, understand, now that we have a few years of data, exactly what or how the historic January 2023 renewals reshaped the relationship between primary insurers and reinsurers. And looking at that data, gain a better understanding of what could happen in the January 2026 renewals. So allow me to share my screen. And while I'll do that, I'll say thank you for joining. And if you'd like to learn more about our work, just reach out. We'd be happy to put you on a trial as part of our you're giving you an opportunity to understand what we do and enjoy our work for a couple of months. So good. Here we are. Let's get right into it. Again, we're focused on reinsurance, how the January 2023 historic, pivotal, generational hard market is the way it was described, how that changed the nature of the relationship between primary insurers and reinsurers. In understanding that, gain a sense for how some of those gains by reinsurers could be unwound if prices decline and attachment points lower. And that's by no means a sure thing, but were that to happen. So let's look at here's special property, which is fire, allied lines, and basically commercial property exposures. And we're looking here at the distribution of ceded ultimate loss ratios across the industry. We picked companies that have at least 10 million of ceded premiums in special property, so we could get a decent sense. But this is, I think, in the neighborhood of 200 companies. And if you look on the left, that's the distribution of ceded ultimate loss ratios for accident years 2021 and accident years 2022, before the hard market. Median ceded loss ratio 52.5, and you see plenty of probability. So in other words, a reasonable number of insurers ceded loss ratios greater than 100%. Now let's look at the distribution of ceded loss ratios, excuse me, in accident years 2023 and 2024. You see the shift in the median loss ratio, ceded loss ratio, i.e. the assumed loss ratio by reinsurers, fell all the way to 37.5 from 52.5. And then look at the absence of ceded loss ratios north of 125, but even the probability of a company ceding a loss ratio above 100, much smaller clearly than it was in 21 and 2022. We did check, and the U.S. insured cat losses in 21 and 22 combined really pretty similar, maybe a little bit more than in 23 and 24, but broadly similar. And in our research note, we also look back and show a distribution for accident years 2017 through 2020. It looks a lot like what you see on the left of your screen here. Let's look at one more. Homeowners. Same idea, same premise, in terms of different companies, of course, that we gathered, but broadly, let's say, I don't know, somewhere around 175 or 200 companies, and you see the ceded loss ratio distribution on the left-hand side for accident years 21 and 22, 44% median ceded loss ratio. Plenty of probability that some companies would cede loss ratios above 100%. Look on the right-hand side, and you see a lower ceded loss ratio, and much smaller probability that the loss ratio would be greater than 100%. So in other words, the hard market lowered the median loss ceded loss ratio and really changed the nature of the distribution. By inference, as we read about the with summaries of Monte Carlo, and see words like reinsurers being innovative and flexible and responsive to their cedents, as would be expected, any business should be. But the observation is a price change, price concessions at January 2026, would result in a rise, an increase in that median ceded loss ratio, but lower attachment points, were that to come to pass, would really reshape the nature of the distribution, and potentially make the reinsurer's loss ratio both higher and more volatile. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to say thank you for joining, listening to this, and if you'd like to learn more, again, just reach out. We have more content on this topic in our October briefing. So thanks again. Have a great rest of your day.